Well, here in Canada, it seems all we've been talking about are tariffs, tariffs, tariffs. But what's the American perspective on this? Well, Lisa Daftari, the editor in chief of the Foreign Desk, joins me from Los Angeles to discuss this along with a whole lot of other topics that are happening around the world. Lisa, welcome. Great to have you back.
Thank you for having me. Great to be
Of
back.
course. Okay, so Trump's tariff threats are dominating the news cycle, but recently Canadian politicians traveled to Washington, D.C. to not just try to negotiate, but also warn American industries that these tariffs are going to hurt them too. However, we've got now Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent is shooting down the idea that tariffs are certain to drive up prices, at least in the short term. So, Lisa, can you explain why Bessent is saying this?
So Bassent's point, and okay, so let's start with the average consumer's fear of all of this is
Mhm.
that prices will go up, and Donald Trump and his administration have acknowledged that that may happen, and we're seeing it here in the United States. I mean, the days when he talks about tariffs, the markets go down. The days that he doesn't talk about it, there's silence. We're saying the markets go up. It's like, please don't talk. So yes, we understand that that may be the growing pains of this strategy. And what is that strategy, right? So, from the perspective of the United States, from the perspective of the Trump administration, those tariffs are meant to equalize the playing field. And Donald Trump sat in the Oval Office last week and said, "We are paying tariffs. By the way, there's tariffs on many products that we bring into the United States. So we're only doing what is fair." And Bissent went on the weekend, the Sunday morning news shows, and said that look, it's already working. We anticipate that between April and June, we're going to see a lot of these tariff nations, mainly Canada and Mexico, because China, because we're seeing Mexico play along a bit more already, will come around. And what does that mean? That we'll tariff you what you tariff us. So if you don't want to be tariffed, you'll back down and you'll decrease the tariffs on the goods that the United States is buying as well. So I think that's pretty much fair. If you're charging me 1%, I'll charge you 1%. If you're charging me 25, I'll charge you 25, and that is what this is meant to do. So according to Bissent, as he laid out this weekend, we're going to see that equalized in months to come. Now, will it be tumultuous here on out? We hope not. We hope that the markets will stabilize based on this forecasting, but let's see how this goes.
Yeah, and like you said there, the Besant was telling Americans that the plan's already working, right? And he's saying that some U.S. trade partners want to drop their tariffs. I know Canadian politicians are pretty much playing this tit for tat game, and it's almost like a chess game. It's ridiculous. It's changing day by day, hour by hour, it seems, and so they're wanting to implement these reciprocal tariffs. So, Lisa, what countries is Besant actually referring to when he's saying they are backing down?
Yeah, so we've already seen Mexico show, some sort of cooperation. Look, with regard to Canada, you guys have, a new PM. You guys have a lot of, there's already a government that wants to prove itself. So when Trump stands there and says, "Oh, that's where you get into the tit for tat war of all of this," but when we really sit down and talk like partners and neighbors, which I hope that will eventually happen when the dust settles, the truth of it is that we can both benefit from lower tariffs on products coming in and out of both countries. We can both benefit from a stronger border. We can both benefit from stronger and more serious migrant policies and immigration policies, and that this is all going to benefit everyone. So Canada, United States, Mexico, the trio have to be in unison when it comes to both tariffs and migration, crime, drugs, all of it. And I think that we'll have a stronger continent for it. Now, with regards to China, I think it's a different ballgame. The Chinese have created a system in which they think that they can do without the United States. They think they can play who's bigger and really go with that strategy. According to the Chinese, they'll go to war over it. So we shall see if this strategy works for all. The issue, I think the blessing and the curse, I will say, with the Donald Trump administration is that he does come into the Oval Office, he does come into the presidency dealing with things the way that he dealt in business and in real estate, the art of the deal, right? And that has worked many times to use those out of the box, strategies when it comes to negotiations, and not using our, not being used when it comes to the United States, not paying, overpaying our share when it comes to the acronymed organizations, and not being taken advantage of. And all that's great. But it's not one size fits all when it comes to these negotiations. Not all negotiation partners are created equally, and I think that Donald Trump knows that, because I hope that he has sat across enough people in his lifetime to understand that the Chinese and the Canadians and the Mexicans will not deal with him in the same manner. So we are hoping that this does benefit the global economy the way that he says it will. I mean, look, that is the bottom line. I know there are a lot of naysayers out there, and I'm not here to defend Donald Trump's personality or his business acumen, but the truth is he's not trying to destroy America or destroy the continent of North America or destroy the world. His approach is to stabilize, is to end the senseless wars, is to stabilize the economy, and to really make it more prosperous for everyone all around. But America first, right?
Yeah, I think you're right. You're definitely running the country like a business, because that's what he does. Is the average American concerned about tariffs, or is it something that's just not even on their minds the way that it is
Yeah, it
in
is.
Canada?
It is. And for the people who oppose Donald Trump, it's actually become such
Mm,
a point, right,
yeah,
for them to say, "Oh, look how great," you see it all over social media.
yeah,
How is that going for us now? How is Make America Great Again going for us now? And they
right.
think
Yeah,
that the tariffs are something that will bring us down, that will create enemies. A lot of people saying, "Why did you make an enemy out of Canada, our friendly neighbor?"
right.
And hopefully that will not be the case. I do hope that in the months to come, the Trump administration will be vindicated, and mostly because this is an important relationship between Canada and the United States. And if both sides can benefit from lower tariffs, from safer borders, then that should be the way forward. And if men can put their egos aside, we need some women in there negotiating all of this. But I think that this is really the way forward. I think that a lot of people will use, in the United States, a lot of people from the center and left of center did vote for Donald Trump. Obviously, that's how he election, by what we would call a political landslide. It wasn't exactly 50-50. Part of that is because Kamala was a much weaker candidate, but part of that was that people are just sick and tired of the economy, and sick and tired of wars, and sick and tired of, the ideology that was really eating away at the Democrat Party. That hasn't changed, and you see the opposition is still the opposition, and those who oppose Donald Trump are still the ones who are opposing Donald Trump. So he still has to win over the media. He still has to win over the universities. He still has to win over the celebrities. If a musician came out the other day in support of Donald Trump, and she's canceled, she's absolutely canceled. And it's crazy to think, if more than 50% of the country voted for this candidate, wouldn't you expect certain artists to also support this candidate? I mean, it's just a matter of statistics, right? But they don't think that way. It's bully culture.
Yeah, I think you hit on something there too with the election. I think another big issue was the border. And of course, the Trump administration deporting hundreds of immigrants that he says, well, I mean, he's deported probably thousands by now, but just recently, hundreds that he says are gang members from Venezuela and maybe elsewhere. And they were transferred to El Salvador. And they were in the air at the time that a judge ordered temporarily banning the deportations. So are you able to tell us anything about this?
The fact that anyone would disagree with this, we here in Los Angeles, Jeanette, and I'm just going to give more of a metaphor than a political opinion. We here in Los Angeles have such a tremendous problem with these gangs. They come in and out, and rob homes. And they are such experts that they're able to disable the camera systems, disable the ring systems, and disable the alarm system, so that you have no protection whatsoever. And, just in our neighborhood, this is a safe, nice neighborhood. Everyone has dogs, everyone has kids, and every other house on the block has been hit. And this is every neighborhood, a nice neighborhood in Los Angeles. And these are the gangs that are coming in from Central and South America. And these are the same ones that are being targeted to be deported. And then you have people in the legal community who actually will say that this is unconstitutional. I just don't see how that is possible. And I would love somebody to explain that to me. But they are not here legally. They force their way in, and they are committing crimes. So, I mean, what argument does that leave them to have a right to be here? It's just mind-boggling.
Yeah, that's really terrifying to think that that is happening in these wonderful neighborhoods, Lisa. Okay, so let's jump a little bit more overseas here, but still looking at Trump. So Trump administration working to broker a deal to end the fighting between Ukraine and Russia. And Russian officials have reported that they want an ironclad guarantee that Ukraine will not join NATO. So what is the latest on this?
So, Jeanette, we are back to square one.
Oh.
This war, basically, many will tell you, started because Russia had a fear that Ukraine was getting too chummy with the West, that was going to allow them to join NATO. And that would leave, Russia just surrounded and vulnerable. And for that reason, we had last week Putin agree tentatively with condition to a ceasefire. And everybody said, is the ceasefire done? Is the ceasefire done? And we were waiting to hear his conditions. And it makes sense that his condition is that he is guaranteed that NATO is not, that Ukraine is not let into NATO. And it makes sense on his part. It makes perfect sense. What the Ukrainians have to understand, and what Zelensky has to understand, I think the Ukrainian people are actually, they understand this because they're the ones who are in the war. Zelensky is not a leader who is leading this war with keeping the people of Ukraine in mind. And I say that for a reason. It's wonderful to keep flexing your muscles. It's wonderful to keep wanting to fight, but you also have to understand and be realistic about that fight. And when this 20 to 25% of Ukraine is occupied by Russia, who has taken that, we cannot reverse that by any means. So we have to end this war so that that 20, 25% doesn't turn into 30 and 40 and 50 and eventually 100%, as Donald Trump has laid out. We also don't want this to turn nuclear. We know that they have nuclear weapons. We know that this could turn into a nuclear war. We know that this could turn into World War III. Again, wanting to give Putin that off-ramp to end this craziness and this madness once and for all. And that is his condition. And the international community, if they want, if the Europeans and of course Donald Trump's administration want to see an end to that, that will be a promise that they have to guarantee him if they want to see an end to this war.
Speaking of wars and ceasefire agreements, so we're looking at mediators still negotiating next steps in the long-term peace process between Israel and Hamas now. So Hamas said on Friday that it agreed to release the last living Israeli American hostage and the bodies of 4 other dual national hostages. But they did not specify when that transfer would take place or what Hamas wants in exchange for their release. So, Lisa, what are your thoughts about this ongoing ordeal?
Yeah, it's horrific because they know that this is the one American left as a hostage. It's crazy that the Biden administration did not do everything in its power to get every single American hostage out, and other hostages, of course. But, again, all civilians, many old people, their bodies still not returned from Gaza. Children, we knew that the Bebus babies, for example, those red-headed children that were allegedly strangled by terrorists by their bare hands. It's crazy to think that more hasn't been done to get these civilians out of the terrorist claws. But now we have the one American that is left. He is from New Jersey. His family has been petitioning all along. The issue that we have here is that Hamas terrorists know that the United States and Israel will do anything to get this one guy back, just like all the other hostages. But in particular, this is an American hostage, very symbolic that he is an American citizen. So let's see what their conditions are. The only issue is that we can't trust them, right? Will they give back the right body? When will they give it back? Will they give it back in a timely way? And they're, in the meantime, buying themselves time, because what does time mean? They can replenish, they can build up again. They know that there will be more war. Each time that there is some sort of ceasefire, this is not a truce. This is not a peace deal by any means. We know that there will be more and more and more attacks by Gaza. There are, daily missiles that still fly into Israel from all parts. So they're still fighting so many multiple fronts of this war. And yet here we have, obviously, Steve Witkoff, the envoy from the Trump administration, at the negotiating table trying to get any hostage they can back, but these are really just small, initiatives in a much larger, broader conflict that will continue, and that's really the sad part. But we do hope that we can get as many hostages back alive as possible, and that is really the approach that both Bibi Netanyahu and the Trump administration are taking at this point.
All right. Oh, boy. What a situation happening there, Lisa. Okay, and then we also have the Houthis, which are an Iranian-backed terror group. Now, They've been attacking maritime traffic in the Red Sea and following U.S. strikes on Houthi targets in Yemen. And the terror group attacked the USS Truman aircraft carrier twice now in the Red Sea. So, what can you tell us about this situation?
Right. This is all connected to that war. Obviously, the Islamic Republic, which is the regime in Iran, is backing Hamas. It is backing Palestinian Islamic Jihad. It is backing Hezbollah in Lebanon. And it is, of course, backing the Houthis in Yemen and many others. But let's just stick with the main players in this conversation. In the meantime, when Hamas is not moving forward at the negotiating table, it was a great show of deterrence by the Trump administration to go ahead and strike Houthi targets because they also are a nuisance. Instead of waiting for them to shoot at us and us intercept those missiles and give ourselves a pat on the back like the Biden administration did many times, there is proactive measures taken to show the regime and to show the Houthis who's in charge, new sheriff in town, and of course that this will not be tolerated any longer. This is peace through strength. This is a show of strength that will hopefully tell Tehran, tell the mullahs in Tehran that they could be next, that there could be strategic targets on their, there could be strategic hits on their nuclear targets, that there could be more slaps on the wrist. These are warnings to them to back off on their regional terror war that they have launched, not only against Israel, but against all moderate Arab states who are against the march forward by the Islamic Republic, taking over the region and, of course, hitting U.S. assets in the meantime. I think this is a wonderful show of strength, and hopefully this will be a turning point in this war to see them come back to the negotiating table. You know, we saw the decimation, or at least the diminishing of Hezbollah in Lebanon. We saw the diminishing, obviously, of Hamas in Gaza, because this is all that needs to be done in this war right now. But really, the Islamic Republic is the one that's pulling the puppet strings, and they're the ones who need to stop the funding of these very different fronts against Israel and the United States.
Lisa Daftari, editor-in-chief of the Foreign Desk, thanks so much for joining me once again today.
Of course, thank you for having me.